Welcome to Cybrary. I am John Martin, and this is the A Plus course. We'll be discussing the updated information you need for the A Plus 900 series. This course will be reviewing the changes CompTIA has made when upgrading the A Plus exam from the 220 801 and 802 to the 220 901 and 902 exams. First couple of things we've got here are course references that you might want to check out. First one you see is the exam objectives for the CompTIA 220 901 exam. That's the hardware exam. The second link you see is the exam objectives for the 902, covering operating systems. And the third one is a National Institute of Standards and Technology special publication covering the cloud, giving you definitions that you need to know and concepts that you need to understand. The 801 exam had the following domains and percentages as a breakdown of the topics that they covered. PC hardware was 40%, network 27%, laptops and printers 11% each, and operational procedures also 11%. The 901 is covering very much the same type of material. They're just weighted differently and distributed in the exam differently. First thing I want to point out is the 901 has a hardware section, not a PC hardware section. This is recognizing that there's been changes in the industry lately, and hardware has moved away from the PC and moved on to tablets, phones, handheld scanners, that sort of thing. Networking takes 21%, mobile devices 17%. Mobile devices are encompassing the tablets, the laptops, the smartphones, of course. And then hardware and network troubleshooting, 28%. You don't see a listing there for operational procedures. They are going to be questions about that are going to be spread throughout the exam. Same thing with printers. Printers will still be a part of the exam. They're just not a domain. The 802 had the following domains and percentages. Operating systems was 33%, security 22%, mobile devices 9%, troubleshooting was 36%. The 902 has the following. Windows operating systems, 29%. Other operating systems and technologies, 12%. You're starting to get tested on Linux, command line tools, that sort of thing. Security is 24%, so is software troubleshooting, and operational procedures, 13%. So to give you a quick overview of the changes, you just saw the change in focus of the domains and how they're weighting them a little bit differently. PC hardware has been changed to hardware. This is in recognition that certain peripherals are no longer necessarily tied to the PC and can stand without the PC acting as a permanent host. Laptops, phones, tablets are all squished together in mobile devices. Printers will be included in the hardware section, and also expect to see them in the troubleshooting section as well. One of the first topics that has changes going from the 801 to the 901 is the configure and apply BIOS settings. The test is now including UEFI, Unified Extensible Firmware Interface. It's the replacement or upgrade for the BIOS, the basic input-output system. They both do essentially the same thing. They are a collection, an organized collection of drivers that you can use, hardware drivers that you can use to configure and customize your laptops, desktops, and servers. You can go in there, turn off access to USB ports. You can go in and on some installations, you can go in and configure RAID, that sort of thing. So the new name for the same concept. The reasoning behind the change, one of the first things you're going to notice actually is you're going to be able to move no longer just with the tab and arrow keys. You can use your mouse inside the BIOS, which is nice. But it's also a move to standardize the firmware interface, so there are not as many changes going from one manufacturer to another. So we're moving away from that proprietary model that the industry has been following since the beginning days. Feel free, obviously, to download and read the standard, which you can see at the link there, uefi.org. It is several thousand pages long. I'm not telling you to read it, but do skim it if you get the chance to get an idea of what some of those changes are. Okay, next section, we need to compare and contrast RAM. In the 901, there isn't anything particularly new to the section. I do want to go over a trick, though, that I teach my students to help memorize speed and module names. One of the things you'll need to know, or you can be tested on, is speeds that each generation of DDR RAM come in, and also that module name. You see for DDR, there's PC 1600, PC 2100, 2700, and PC 3200. You know, some people sit down in front of a table or break out the flashcards, memorize things. What I want to teach you is the pattern that the memory industry is following to name things. So what I tell my students is memorize the first generation of the DDR speeds: 200, 267, 334, and 400. And that's it. That's the only thing I want you memorizing. Each generation after that, and if you're looking at the graph, you're seeing this, doubles the previous generation in speeds. These are measured in megahertz. DDR2, 200 goes to 400. 267 goes to 533. Then we get 667 and 800. DDR3 doubles those speeds. So we go to 800 megahertz, 1066 megahertz, 1333, and 1600. These are, of course, non-overclocked speeds. You're not going to get asked questions on what the speeds would be if you were overclocking it. I wanted to point that out, though. When you come over to the module name, you're taking the speed for the DDR. So we're going to start with 200. You're going to multiply it by 8. If you get a number that it doesn't end evenly on the hundreds, you're going to have to round up or round down. So 200 multiplied by 8 is 1600. That's the module name for a DDR that has a maximum speed of 200 megahertz, PC 1600. 267, you multiply that by 8, and then round down, you get PC 2100. 334, do the same thing, PC 2700, only now you're rounding, I think you were rounding up to get to 2700. And then 8 times 400 is 3200, and you can see under the module name, PC 3200 is the name associated with 400 megahertz. The PC prefix has a number following it that follows the generation of DDR that we're talking about. So DDR2, the module name, will be prefixed with PC2. DDR3 will be prefixed with PC3, and then you just multiply 8 and do the rounding thing, and you'll get the numbers. So the only numbers you really need to memorize are those speeds for the DDR. That's it. I tell my students when they give you a laminated piece of paper, before you take your CompTIA test, before you take any test, you take it and you write down 200, 266, 267 rather, 334, and 400. And then from that, if they ask you questions on that topic, you can just double everything from there. So knowing this trick, without referring to the previous slide, can you figure out what the transfer speeds and the module names for the next generation of DDR memory will be? I'll give you a hint. It's DDR4. Keep that trick in mind when you're tackling other technologies, other transfer technologies like PCIe and SATA. When you look at how their speeds change from generation to generation, you should see the same pattern. The exact doubling of speeds won't happen all the time, but it will happen enough that you'll have a leg up on memorizing transfer speeds and performance. And like I said, it's a legitimate topic for the exam. They're going to ask some of you what a module name will be for a particular generation. Expect it, and now you have a tool to help you memorize it.